Hi everyone, my name is Cynthia. Let's talk books, and today I'm here with a recap of the last 5 books that I read. So this is book 6 through 10 of books that I've read in 2023, and let's get right to it. The first book is That Dangerous Energy by Aya de León. Okay, Aya de León's writing recently has been so interesting. It is clear that she's really interested in stories about spies, strong black Afro-Latina women, and there was so much to love in this particular book. You're following a young artist who is kind of looking for her big break, and she meets this billionaire who she doesn't love, but she thinks this billionaire could be her key to making it as an artist, or at least supporting her through this. She has a friend who's kind of coaching her through how to date a billionaire. But while she's dating the billionaire, she meets this environmental activist that just makes all the sparks go fly. However, her billionaire owns a company that is up to some shady things, and so she ends up kind of acting as a spy. It is so complex. The story is so complex. It has a strong romantic theme, and it does have the happily ever after, but I think the romance element here is really secondary to the story of our main character and her trying to find herself and trying to find her environmental activism. Some parts of the story really worked for me. I'm really enjoying Aya de Leon's writing, but the romantic elements just did not work for me. I don't like when the heroine is essentially dating two men, even if it's in the context of spying. Um, yeah, I just not like that. So that trope didn't work for me. But otherwise, I really need to keep reading everything that Aya de Leon is doing, because I think she's doing some really interesting things. And that's what happens when you're writing really interesting things. Sometimes it'll work, and other times it won't 100% work. And so for me, I'm just so interested in this writer, that even things that don't fully work, I really enjoy overall. So those are my thoughts. The next book I finished was Echoes in Death by J.D. Robb or Nora Roberts. This is book number 44 in the In Death series, and I like this installment. This one had more of Eve, Detective Eve Dallas, Rourke. Yeah, this was just a solid book for me. These in-depth books are kind of my comfort reading, and so I had to basically at this point in my reading read something that just felt more warm, easy to read, and this series gives me all of that. Next on my list was Our Share of Night by Mariana Enríquez. I recently did a dedicated review to this book, so I will link that below, but it is the last video I posted on YouTube, so if you want to check it out. The short version of it is that this is a translated work set in Argentina during the dictatorship and the dirty wars, but it's not about that. It's about a father and son. The story begins with a father and son traveling through Argentina during this period, and it is clear that the father is trying to keep the son away from something at the same time that the son is developing certain abilities. And then the story progresses. This is a long, thick book. It's about a cult and the trauma inflicted on its members by this cult, including members of the founding family. So it's really interesting. It's complex, it's heavy, it's beautifully written. I really enjoyed this book, but it's not for everyone. So definitely check out my dedicated review where I go more into depth on this book if you're interested. But it was marvelous for me to read, to get to experience this book. The next book on my list is The Town of Babylon by Alejandro Varela. Okay, this book, I wasn't sure quite what to expect, and it was really intriguing and surprised me in the best way possible. This was a 5-star read for me. You're following a Latino gay man as he's going back home to take care of his father, who recently has had health issues, and so he's helping his mom take care of his father. At the same time that his relationship with his husband is kind of going through a rocky period, and the day he gets back in town, the high school reunion is taking place at one of the local restaurants. So he decides to just go to the reunion, and then all of the memories of the past just rise to the surface. And so part of the story takes us back to his time period as a young kid growing up in a suburban area that is very white, as a Latino kid in a private Catholic high school. And just, I love this. It's full of what happens to when you're like the only person growing up, or one of a very few non-white people in a high school, how the microaggressions, the straight up racism. On top of it, our main character is queer and is figuring that out, trying to have relationships and falling in love at a time in which he is not out. He's not out to his family. He's not out to his community. And there's strong themes here of like mental health, trauma, huge content warnings, by the way, for homophobia, sexual assault, violence, sexual abuse, and it's a heavy book. But it's so worth it. I think it's so worth it. It's told in a very fresh voice, and it felt so real. Like a lot of these experiences I don't share with the author, but some of them I did, and all of that just felt so real to me. And it was beautifully written, and it was like just surprising to me how good this book is. I cannot rave about this book enough. If you're all interested in some of these themes, I really think you should give it a shot. And then the book number 10 is A Certain Hunger by Chelsea G. Summers. This book I have such conflicted feelings about, because the premise really intrigued me. I actually picked up this book at a bookstore and almost purchased it, then decided I was just going to get it from the library, and I'm so glad I did, because I don't think it's necessarily a book I want to own, because I'm so conflicted on it. You start off with a female main character who is in prison for having killed a man. She is, and she tells us right straight off the bat that she is a serial killer, a female serial killer, and then she goes back and basically tells us her story. So she's a psychopath, definitely a psychopath. I mean, at least the author is telling us she is a psychopath, and the main character uses that word to describe herself. All of that, how she, like her relationships with friends, and how they basically, for the most part, fail, and a few succeed. It was really interesting. Her relationship with men, I did find really interesting. Seeing relationships through the eyes of a psychopath can be illuminating in some ways. The voice was really interesting, because she speaks to the audience, kind of breaks that wall with us, and she knows at certain times, I know what you're thinking, this is what you're thinking, but let me explain this to you. And it highlights a lot of things within relationships, with friendships and romantic relationships, that just, like, I think really hit the nail on the head. But there's a section of this book, kind of about a third of the way in, I think, in which the author starts getting into really descriptive, really vivid descriptions of cannibalism. Like, really vivid. Even the author acknowledges at one point that this is too much, that the reader might want to skim through it, and she's telling us not to skim it, but I almost DNF'd the book, because and I'm someone who can handle quite a bit of violence and graphic descriptions in a lot of different contexts, including cannibalism, because I have read books that engage with the theme of cannibalism, but this one was too much. And so if I'm finding myself like really wanting to skim sections of a book, to me, it's not like, it cannot be a 5-star book. It's not a sections that I enjoyed. I feel kind of disgusted and nauseous reading those sections. the rest of the book I liked, but there's so much of this cannibalism in there. So it was overall mixed. Like, it was not a pleasurable experience for a large chunk of the book. So I'm at a loss of like what to rate it. Usually on like something like Goodreads, I would give this book like a 3-star read, in that I'm not gonna discourage anybody from reading it. I feel that there were parts here that were good, but also in this case, I'm feeling particularly mixed in what my exact feelings on this are. Especially even now, weeks after having finished the book, I'm still like kind of conflicted, and thinking maybe if I had DNF'd it, that it would have been okay. I was ultimately interested in the psychopath's story. I wanted to hear how she got caught. That's the one bit of information that the author keeps delaying for us. We keep not getting the full story there. We're getting bits and pieces as we go, until the end when we get the full story. So it is satisfying at the end in terms of like wanting to hear that part. But was that ultimately, like, I'm wondering, it was that revelation, was it satisfying enough to justify these sections I didn't enjoy? And I don't know. I just don't know. If I'm that on the fence, it's probably a no. But if anybody has read it and enjoyed it, by all means, please tell me. I can completely understand why somebody would like it, and how you can kind of skim some of the cannibalism part or not take it too seriously. The state of mind and the mood I was in, just did not allow me to just give it a pass on that. Yeah, it was just too much for me. So there's that. So that is it. 2, 3, 4. Yep, those are books number 6 through 10 in my reading so far. The reading so far in 2023 has been a bit slow, because I was reading Our Share of Night, which is such a thick, heavy book, and there were times in which I was taking my time with it, times in which I was speeding up with the reading on it, and I was reading on top of that another large, heavy book. So it's been a little bit slower than normal for me, but still really good reading so far, I think. So if you've read any of these books so far, if you're interested in them, if you're absolutely not interested in them, let me know all of that down in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.